In our world today, just completely saturated with tech and with AI becoming such a daily thing,
Mm.
it really feels like our relationship with our devices and all this AI, it's just constantly changing.
It really is. It's quite a shift we're seeing, how we interact with everything now.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We've looked at quite a bit of research articles
Right?
to explore 10 psychological syndromes,
Yeah.
things that have either popped up or gotten way more noticeable in this age of tech and AI.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how these aren't, formal medical diagnoses in the traditional sense, but they really capture the psychological effects of living so digitally.
Exactly. So our mission here is to give everyone listening a really clear picture of these syndromes, why they matter, and how they actually show up in day-to-day life.
And we'll try to keep it conversational, right? Avoid the heavy jargon.
Definitely. So we'll be covering nomophobia, that feeling of sheer panic without your phone, right through to Technostress, which
Cool.
is more of that overall feeling of being overloaded by tech.
And in between.
Oh, yeah. We've got phantom vibration syndrome, FOMO, a
Yeah.
huge one, internet and social media addiction, the dreaded Zoom fatigue,
Ooh, Zoom fatigue.
digital dementia, or cognitive offloading, doomscrolling, AI anxiety, and cyberchondria,
Wow,
too.
quite a list. And it's important to remember these aren't just abstract ideas.
Not at all. They're real experiences, things that, honestly, many of us might recognize in ourselves or people we know.
So maybe as we talk through them, listeners can think about how these patterns might be showing up for them.
Good point. Okay, let's dive in. First up, nomophobia, no mobile phone phobia.
Right.
I think this is something a lot of us have brushed up against, at least. It's that really intense fear, almost irrational, of being without a working phone or, no signal.
That sudden jolt of panic when you pat your pocket and it's not there, or you're in a dead zone.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And, it makes sense when you consider how central smartphones have become. They're not just for calls anymore.
Oh, definitely not.
In this, hyper-connected world, they're our main way to get information, connect socially, navigate, even manage money.
Everything.
Pretty much. And the research that coined the term nomophobia really grew out of studying that deep, deep reliance.
And you can really see the effects, can't you? That constant need to check the phone, people finding it genuinely hard to just unplug.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows how tangled up tech is with our minds. Our sources even mentioned physical symptoms, sometimes anxiety, trembling, feeling disoriented.
Wow. Yeah, and if you look at the bigger picture, you can see how nomophobia connects to other things we'll talk about, like stress and FOMO.
How so?
Well, that constant need for connection fuels the fear of missing out, right? And that adds to stress. Plus, it can really pull you out of real-world interactions if your mind is always on your device.
Right? Totally pulls you out of the moment. And think about that classic scenario. You leave your phone at home, feel that dread, and you actually turn back to get it.
Or being on a plane where you have to turn it off, that slight unease.
Exactly. One source shared this kind of funny story about a writer patting his empty pocket, searching for his phone.
Yeah.
While holding his phone in his other hand, it just perfectly shows how automatic that dependence is.
That's a great example. It's almost subconscious, that connection.
Okay, moving on to something a bit weirder. Phantom vibration syndrome.
Ah, yes, the ghost buzz.
Exactly. That really odd feeling when you swear your phone vibrated or rang in your pocket, but you check,
Yeah.
nothing. It's like a little tech-induced hallucination.
It is, yeah. And it's interesting how our brains work. We're so used to our phones buzzing or ringing constantly that our brain gets conditioned, anticipates it. So sometimes it seems like the brain just misinterprets another feeling, like your clothes moving, or a tiny muscle twitch as a phone notification.
It's such a quirky side effect of modern life, isn't it? Our brains basically inventing signals because they expect them.
Yeah.
So, okay, besides being a bit weird, what does it actually mean?
Well, usually it's pretty harmless, benign, but it does point to this subtle undercurrent of anxiety, maybe. Hyper-awareness about our phones.
Like always being on alert.
Kind of, yeah. It can suggest you use your phone a lot. And there's some interesting research suggesting that people who experience it more often might also have higher stress or burnout levels. They studied medical interns, for example.
Oh, that makes sense. If you have to be reachable 24/7, your nervous system would be on high alert.
Exactly. So while it might seem minor, it can be a little window into our deeper relationship with tech and the demands it places on us.
I've definitely felt that phantom buzz. You reach down expecting something. Nope. And that statistic you mentioned.
Yeah, one study found something like 3/4 of young adults had experienced it, especially if they were anxiously waiting for a call or text.
Wow, 3/4. That really shows how common it is.
Mm.
Our expectations playing tricks on us.
It really does. It's widespread.
Okay, next. FOMO. Fear of missing out. This just feels like the anxiety of our digital age, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That nagging feeling that everyone else is out there having amazing experiences and you're not.
Yeah. And social media seems to pour gasoline on that fire.
It really does. Think about it. Instagram feeds are basically highlight reels, right?
Right.
Carefully selected happy moments.
Totally curated.
Then you've got Twitter trends, news alerts popping up constantly. It's this nonstop stream of what everyone else is supposedly doing or knowing.
And the algorithms probably push the popular stuff, right? Making it seem even more important.
Exactly. AI might highlight what your friends are up to or what news is trending, which just ramps up that feeling that you have to stay plugged in or you'll miss out.
So you're just constantly seeing everyone else's best bits. And it's so easy to forget that's not their whole life. What does that do to us?
Well, psychologically, it can really drive that compulsive checking. Phones, social media, you're afraid of being left out. And constantly comparing your own, normal, messy life to these perfect online versions, that can really chip away at your self-esteem, your contentment. You start feeling inadequate.
It's like you're always playing catch up or feeling behind somehow.
Precisely. And that cycle can lead to more stress, feeling down, being distracted all the time. It definitely feeds into that bigger idea of technostress we'll get to later.
I've definitely felt that pang of envy, scrolling, seeing friends at a party I didn't know about, or colleagues learning some new AI skill.
It's super common, and it can actually change behavior. You might constantly check notifications or say yes to everything just because you're afraid you'll regret missing out later.
Even during the pandemic, right? People felt FOMO about Zoom hangouts.
Yeah. It shows how technology keeps us hyper aware of what we might be missing, even when we couldn't physically be there.
It's like we swapped the chance of missing out for the constant feeling that we are.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something potentially more serious. Internet and social media addiction. This is when the compulsive use of the internet really starts messing with daily life.
Yeah, and it's crucial to understand how these platforms are designed to be engaging, really engaging.
You mean like intentionally?
Well, yeah, think about AI-driven recommendations, that infinite scroll. It's all built to keep you hooked. Social media gives you those little dopamine hits with likes and comments.
The dopamine.
And video games offer this really immersive escape. It's powerful stuff.
So it's not just a lack of willpower then, if the tech itself is kind of working against you.
That's a big part of it. And the fallout can be pretty serious. It can damage real-life relationships, hurt work or school performance, mess with sleep, impact mental health.
How so?
Well, people might start neglecting responsibilities, becoming more isolated. There are links to anxiety, depression. This whole idea of smartphone addiction is connected to lower productivity, worse grades, even physical things like eye strain or not sleeping well.
So it's not just lost time, it's actual harm.
Right. And there's a psychological toll, too, feeling guilty about how much time you spend online, but feeling unable to stop, maybe even experiencing cravings or withdrawal if you try to cut back.
I think most of us know that feeling, right? Scrolling TikTok way too late, or just one more game, even when you know you shouldn't.
Exactly. That urge can feel really strong. And it's become a huge issue. Estimates suggest millions struggle with problematic internet use.
Which explains things like digital detoxes becoming popular.
Precisely. And even treatment centers specializing in this. It shows this is recognized as a real, complex behavioral problem happening in an environment basically designed to keep us clicking.
That's a sobering thought. Okay, let's pivot to something many of us got very familiar with recently, Zoom fatigue.
Ah, yes. The bane of remote work for many.
It's more than just being tired after meetings, right? It's this specific kind of burnout from too much video conferencing.
It really came to the forefront during lockdowns, didn't it? With remote work, virtual everything. And while AI isn't the direct cause, it's definitely part of this tech-mediated world. AI might power things like virtual backgrounds or transcriptions.
Yeah, so helpful features.
But the main issue is the intensity of being on in that virtual way for so long.
It feels different than being in a room with people, doesn't it? You're staring at faces on a screen.
Yeah.
You're aware of your own camera.
Exactly. It takes more mental energy, more cognitive load. You're trying harder to read facial expressions, maybe dealing with lag or bad audio, and you lose all those subtle, natural body language cues.
And seeing yourself on screen all the time, that's weirdly tiring too.
It is. That constant self-awareness plus the intense focus needed, it's surprisingly draining. It definitely increases stress.
And I bet the whole work from home thing, blurring the lines between office and personal space, just added to that burnout feeling.
Oh, absolutely. Back-to-back virtual meetings without those natural breaks you get walking between rooms in an office, that takes a toll. People widely reported feeling way more wiped out and less engaged after days of video calls compared to in-person work.
I remember those days vividly, just feeling completely drained by the end of the day, even though I barely moved from my chair. Students felt it, conference attendees, it was everywhere.
And it's not just feelings. There's actual research using brain scans.
Really?
Yeah, showing that video conferencing can overstimulate certain brain areas. It suggests Zoom fatigue isn't just psychological. There's a real physiological response happening.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know it wasn't just me feeling it. Our brains are working harder than we think in those calls.
They really are.
All right, let's explore a concept that really makes you think about our thinking. Digital dementia, or cognitive offloading.
Right. The core idea here, which people like Manfred Spitzer have really pushed, is that by constantly letting our devices do the thinking for us, we might actually be, well, weakening our own cognitive abilities.
Like memory and concentration.
Exactly. It's that whole use it or lose it idea applied to our brains. Think how quickly we Google something instead of trying to recall it.
Guilty.
Or how reliant we are on GPS instead of building mental maps.
Also guilty. I barely know phone numbers anymore.
Right. And now with AI getting better finishing our sentences, suggesting replies, the concern is we're reducing our mental effort even further. Could this mean younger generations develop weaker recall or shorter attention spans?
That's definitely a worry you hear a lot, especially regarding kids and screen time.
And there is some research suggesting, for example, that heavy GPS users might show less activity in the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory compared to people who navigate using memory. So digital dementia is kind of a stark term for this worry about long-term effects.
But isn't there another side to it? Like maybe our brains are just adapting, shifting resources.
That's a really important counterargument. Yeah, many cognitive scientists suggest we're not necessarily declining overall, but maybe becoming better at other things, like finding and processing information quickly.
So offloading tasks, but maybe gaining skills elsewhere.
Potentially. But even if that's true, balance is key. If relying too much on tech leads to real problems with attention or memory recall, that can still negatively impact learning, productivity, you know?
I think we can all relate to walking into a room and forgetting why, or struggling to remember a basic fact, and just instantly reaching for Google.
Exactly. That's cognitive offloading in action, that immediate reliance on the external digital brain.
So the digital dementia idea is basically a warning against letting our devices do too much thinking for us, against mental laziness.
That's the core of it, yeah. Are we letting our mental muscles atrophy by outsourcing everything? It's definitely something to consider about our relationship with tech.
What do you think? Okay, let's shift to a behavior that probably surged during stressful times. Doomscrolling.
Oh, yes. That endless scroll through bad news.
It's that thing where you keep scrolling through negative, upsetting stuff online, even though it's making you feel terrible, right?
Exactly. There's this weird compulsion. The more you read, the worse you feel, but you just can't seem to pull away. The name itself, doom and scrolling, really took off around 2020, didn't it?
It did. And the way platforms are designed with those endless feeds, it feels like they almost encourage it.
They certainly make it easy. There's always another headline, another update. And during a crisis, that instinct to stay informed can just spiral into this obsessive scrolling.
And algorithms might even make it worse if bad news gets more clicks.
That's the concern, yeah. If negative content drives engagement, AI might inadvertently keep feeding it to you, filling your timeline with upsetting stuff. Plus, the 24/7 news cycle means there's always more bad news available, fueling late-night doom scrolling sessions.
It's like our brains get stuck in threat detection mode, looking for danger, even when we can't do anything about it right then.
That's a good way to think about it, and the impact on mental health is pretty significant. It's linked to more anxiety, stress, feeling hopeless.
And physical symptoms, too.
Yeah, things like poor sleep, headaches. It can also really skew your perception of the world, making everything seem bleaker, more hostile than it might actually be.
It definitely feels like it can trap you in this really negative headspace.
It can. That constant activation of the brain's threat response leads to chronic stress. And if lots of people are doing it, it can even contribute to a kind of collective anxiety in society.
We can all picture it, right? You start checking news about one crisis, and an hour later you're down some rabbit hole reading worst-case scenarios, feeling completely drained but unable to stop.
That is the classic doom-scrolling experience. And like you said, it became so common that dictionaries added the term. Mental health experts started specifically advising people to limit news intake, especially before bed, to try and break that cycle.
It's a reminder that staying informed is important, but protecting your mental state is crucial too. Sometimes you just have to switch off.
Absolutely. Finding that balance is key.
Okay, now for a syndrome that feels very current. AI anxiety, that growing worry about artificial intelligence and its place in our world.
Right. And it's quite broad, isn't it? It can range from practical fears like, will AI take my job?
Yeah, that's a big one.
To much deeper, almost existential concerns about AI becoming uncontrollable or surpassing human intelligence. It's less a specific phobia, more this sort of general unease about the future.
And the recent leaps in AI generating creative content, driving cars, having conversations that sound human that must be fueling it.
Oh, definitely. When AI starts doing things we thought were uniquely human or making decisions with real-world consequences, it naturally creates unease.
Plus things like deepfakes, autonomous weapons.
Exactly. Those raise huge questions about privacy, jobs, even what it means to be human. And then you have news headlines constantly highlighting AI advancements, plus warnings from influential people about potential dangers.
It all adds up to this feeling of uncertainty, like we're heading into uncharted territory at high speed.
Yeah. Precisely. And in the workplace, this general AI anxiety can kind of merge with technostress, creating a specific fear about automation and job security. You could almost see AI anxiety as the 21st century version of technophobia, just intensified by how fast AI is moving.
So how does this anxiety actually show up for people?
Well, it could be general stress about the future, maybe resisting new AI tools or feeling a bit helpless against these big technological changes.
Like a graphic designer feeling demoralized by AI image generators.
That's a perfect example. Or writers worried about AI chatbots. On a bigger scale, if enough people are anxious, it could slow down the adoption of beneficial AI because of public pushback or mistrust.
But maybe a little anxiety isn't all bad. Could it push us to have important conversations about ethics and regulation?
That's a very good point. A healthy level of concern can absolutely spur those crucial discussions. And surveys do show a lot of people, maybe around a third, feel anxious about AI's impact. It's almost like climate anxiety, in a way, a big systemic issue causing widespread stress.
And we see real-world examples, don't we? Workers protesting AI tools, students worrying about careers becoming obsolete.
Right. Or media stories about automation anxiety affecting truck drivers, call center workers being monitored by AI.
Even just that everyday unease about algorithms tracking us online, deciding what we see.
Exactly. That's all part of this broader phenomenon of AI anxiety. It's becoming a really significant part of the conversation about mental well-being today.
It definitely feels like something we're all collectively trying to get our heads around.
We are. It's new territory.
Okay, let's look at how having too much information can backfire. Cyberchondria. Health anxiety supercharged by the internet.
Yeah, it's basically hypochondria meeting Dr. Google. The internet gives us access to vast amounts of medical info.
Which sounds good in theory.
Right, but it often lacks context or doesn't explain probabilities. You type in a simple symptom like headache.
And suddenly you're reading about brain tumors.
Exactly. Alongside more likely, benign causes. But without a doctor's guidance, it's easy to latch onto the scariest possibilities, even if they're rare.
And now with AI symptom checkers and things, does that make it worse? People might trust the AI more.
That's a potential concern, yeah. If people place too much faith in an AI diagnosis without proper medical consultation. And we know people are searching surveys show a significant chunk of adults self-diagnose online each year.
So what happens when someone prone to health anxiety starts doing this constantly?
It can really ramp up their anxiety and stress unnecessarily. They might fixate on having a serious illness, leading to lots of doctor visits, maybe demanding tests.
Even if the doctor says they're fine.
Sometimes, yeah. Or, conversely, some might get so scared by their online diagnosis that they avoid seeing a real doctor altogether. Either way, it can strain the healthcare system and make the doctor-patient relationship tricky if the patient comes in armed with pages printed from the web.
So, more information doesn't equal more peace of mind here.
Not always, no. Cyberchondria really highlights a big challenge of the information age. We need digital literacy, the ability to evaluate online info critically, especially when it comes to health.
I think most people have done it at some point, Googled a minor symptom, and ended up down a terrifying rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's easy to see how that could spiral for someone already anxious.
Absolutely. That's cyberchondria in a nutshell. People basically work themselves into a state of high anxiety by obsessing over online health info, often without any real medical reason. Doctors often advise patients prone to this to limit their health searches or stick strictly to highly reputable sources.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Wanting to be informed, but not becoming overwhelmed or frightened by what you find online.
It really is.
Okay, finally, let's talk about Technostress. This feels like the big umbrella term covering a lot of what we've discussed.
It really is. Technostress captures that overall stress, the mental strain that comes from constantly having to adapt to new technologies and deal with all the digital stimulation.
It's not a new term, right?
Yeah.
Been around a lot.
Since the 80s, actually, but it's incredibly relevant now. It covers everything from feeling swamped by too much information online to feeling anxious about always being on or reachable.
It feels like every time there's a new tech wave, computers, smartphones, now AI, it brings a new layer of potential stress.
Exactly. Learning new software, keeping up with social media, feeling pressured to answer emails instantly, it all contributes. And with AI, we're seeing new kinds of technostress emerge.
Like what?
Things like techno-insecurity, worrying you can't keep up with new AI tools, maybe fearing for your job, or techno-overload, just feeling bombarded by too many apps, platforms, notifications, too much data to handle.
So what are the effects of this constant underlying technostress?
Well, research links higher levels of technostress to lower productivity, less job satisfaction, and generally poor well-being.
How does it show up? Feeling burnt out, irritable.
Yeah, burnout, irritability, feeling like you just can't keep up with the pace of change. Unlike, say, nomophobia, which is quite specific, technostress is often more of a chronic background hum of anxiety and fatigue that comes from being so dependent on tech.
Like being stuck on a treadmill that keeps speeding up.
That's a great analogy, and thankfully, some organizations are starting to recognize this and trying things to help employees unplug, like rules about after-hours emails.
But it's also on us individually.
Definitely. Learning to manage technostress proactively is becoming really important for our mental health in this digital world.
I can relate to that, feeling stressed about learning new software while emails are piling up. It's exhausting.
It is. Even tech designed to make life easier can add stress if it increases our mental load or blurs those work-life boundaries too much. Ultimately, technostress is a major challenge, maybe part of the price we pay for technology advancing faster than we can always comfortably adapt.
That's a really important point as we keep weaving more tech, especially AI, into our lives.
It really is.
Well, wrapping this up, it's pretty clear these 10 syndromes really show how deeply AI and digital tech are affecting us psychologically.
In so many different ways. From that basic fear of being offline to complex anxieties about the future of AI, these are real experiences shaping modern life.
And just understanding these things, recognizing them, that feels like the essential first step, doesn't it? Towards maybe navigating this digital world a bit more mindfully.
I think so, yeah. Recognizing these patterns in ourselves or others gives us a chance to make more conscious choices about how we use technology.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Which of these syndromes rang true for you? Did any really resonate?
And maybe thinking about, what small steps could you take to build a slightly healthier relationship with your tech?
Yeah, maybe looking into things like digital well-being strategies or just trying to be more mindful when you pick up your phone. Could be worth exploring.
Because this relationship we have with technology, it's constantly evolving right alongside the tech itself. So we need to keep learning, keep adapting, and stay aware of how it's affecting us.
It's definitely an ongoing conversation. Thanks so much for digging into this with us today.